Folks, if you go back 25 years ago to 1983, early 1980s, Colorado had a very serious environmental problem northeast of Denver. For those of you who don't know the history intimately, very briefly, the Army had operated Rocky Mountain Arsenal as a chemical weapons plant in World War II. From 1952 to 1972, Shell had operated as a pesticide plant. And by 1980, it was determined to be one of the worst hazardous waste sites in America. It was a Superfund site. In 1983, none other than Howard Kennison, then working for Attorney General Dwayne Woodard, they filed a series of natural resource damage claims around the state of Colorado. And this was one of them. Now you ask, well, why did it take so long to settle? One of the reasons is that you don't know what your permanent damages are until you have a cleanup. And what that case brought about was an investment of what is now about $2.1 million, will probably be $2.3 or $2.4 billion in the cleanup before it's finally completed, before the Army and Shell leave, to clean up the site. But beginning during Ken's administration and continuing on to mine, we began to get a feel for what the remaining permanent damages would be. And of course, it surrounded groundwater contamination, which, by the way, is very, very difficult, not only to quantify, but then put dollar values on. It's one of the most difficult things in natural resource damages. So come to January of 2005, I'm transitioning into the office, Ken's transitioning out, and I remember sitting down and he giving me a list of his priorities. And number one was, we got to get this thing done. He very much wanted, he had a vision for how this settlement would fit into the whole development of the Northeast Greenway area, and he really wanted to get it done. I took over the case and became very rapidly frustrated at the pace of negotiations and experts back and forth and all this kind of stuff. And frankly, what did it was at some point in time, we cut through all the stuff, and I started meeting directly with Shell, the higher echelons of Shell, and the top lawyer for the Department of Justice who represented the Army. And folks in my office got a big kick out of it because we call them mano-a-mano meetings. And it took you know, half a dozen of those before we were able to actually get a hold of what we were talking about and what it would take to settle it. And you know, essentially we're talking about over and above the cleanup, bringing $35 million additional dollars in. As you know, early on the Army built a water treatment facility. They invested about $6.6 million. There's some land at Commerce City that's being outlined. It's going to be 90 acres right adjacent to the corridor. And then there's $27.5 million, and that's ultimately $27.5 million in cash that's on its way. We've got the consent decrees signed. We don't have the United States consent decree signed. Ken, could you on Monday get the Department of Justice to send that in? Okay. And I'm hoping they're not waiting until next year's tax receipts because given the economy there may not be any. So. But anyway, the money's on its way in, folks, and that's going to make a huge difference. A lot of great work's been done out there. I see John Swart out. GOCO has invested in the Greenway. Folks like the Sand Creek group have done marvelous work. A lot of great work's been done, but a lot more great work is going to be done. And I agree with Ken. I think this is going to be a legacy for all of us far into the future. I know that all of you in here, so many of you have been intimately involved, and all of you have been supportive, and I'm very, very thankful for that.